The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh. I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. Today's webinar is on the Chapter Goals program. So what we're going to be doing is going through the Chapter Goals program, taking a look at how do we enter chapter goals going forward, what do some of these goals mean, how are they calculated, maybe some best practices. Also show you some mechanisms for attaining those goals, and then finally also showing you the reports that you can follow up with to look at those goals going forward to make sure that you're staying on track. This webinar is a 30-minute webinar. What that means is that the content is designed to take up about 30 minutes. At the end of that 30 minutes, we understand people have busy and hectic lives and schedules. And at that point, we will open it up for questions and answers, and whoever can stay for the questions and answers, you are welcome to. I am always happy to stay on these calls as long as people have valid questions. They can be on this goals functionality, they can be on anything in BNI Connect, and we're happy to answer those questions while you have somebody from support live and on the line. And this is a live webinar, so you may participate in it. There is a questions panel, so if you have any questions or comments or concerns as we're going through the material, please do bring up your points, ask your questions, bring any comments forward. This webinar is being recorded. It will be available probably in a day or so on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. So youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. So you can go there and you will see a whole bunch of videos up there. You can subscribe to the channel so that you get updates, or you can just view them. They are also available on our support site. If you go to support.bniconnect.com, or if you're in BNI Connect, just click on this little question mark up in the upper right-hand corner. And when you get to that page, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's a training section. And in this training sections, there is a webinar section, and we post all of our recorded webinars up there as well. So here's all the January webinars that you can view and review. Okay, so let's get into the actual material for today. So the chapter goals. The chapter goals is something that your chapter can use to basically stay on track throughout the year. By default, the leadership team, so the president, the vice president, or the membership coordinator, as it's called in some countries, and the secretary-treasurer will all have access to enter the goals. Now, by default, all the chapter members can also review those goals at any time. The place to find the goals in the system is under Operations, Chapter, and then Manage Goals. And you'll see that there's two options under there. The first one is Enter Chapter Goals, and the second one is View Chapter Goals. Now, again, by default, you as a leadership team member, if we have leadership team members on the call today, you will have access to the Enter Chapter Goals. The members of the chapter will only see this View Chapter Goals in order to review them. So what I'm going to do, though, first is I'm going to switch over to our test system because I don't want to mess up anybody's stats in the real world. So let me go back to Operations Chapter. And I'm going to switch the country to Antarctica. Antarctica is our test region. And I'm going to go to the Shiver region and our Burr chapter. And we're going to enter some goals for the Burr chapter. So we're going to do that by clicking on Enter Chapter Goals. Now, once this comes up, the first thing that you're going to see here is something that stays the same throughout the time that you're establishing goals in the chapter. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do a start month and year. So when do you want to start entering your goals for? Now, the goals, just because of screen size limitations, really more than anything, we can only enter 6 months at a time, but they can be any 6 months you want. By default, it's gonna choose the next 6-month period. Now, BNI periods traditionally are either they go from April to the end of September, and then October to the end of March. Now, that's when the leadership teams transition worldwide on those 2 dates. Now, some regions do a 1-year term, in which case, April to April or October to October. But either way, it's going to, by default, choose those. But you can change this date to anything you'd like to. So if you'd like to start entering goals from January, you can choose to enter goals from January. You can also go back in time if you really want to and enter goals for last year to see if you retroactively met the goals that you were trying to attain. So once you choose that, I'm going to choose January, let's say, and choose Done. The next two things that are on the screen are a long-term vision and a mission statement. So this is really, especially as a leadership team, what is your focus? What is your long-term vision of the chapter? Now, I put something very simple in here. I just put grow the chapter. You probably want to spend a little time talking about it should be a motivational statement of what is your long-term vision for this chapter. What do you want to be, a 40-member chapter, a 50-member chapter? Do you want to be a 70-member chapter? Do you want to be the largest and most profitable chapter in your state or in your region or in the country or in the world? What are your dreams for the chapter? And that's really what the long-term vision is meant to do. So more than just grow the chapter, probably something like, we are focusing to become the largest chapter in the state of Rhode Island. Well, we're in Antarctica, I guess. In all of Antarctica. We will pass $1 billion in referrals and things like that are going to motivate your leadership team and your chapter to achieve those goals. The next thing is the mission statement. And the mission statement is the how. So the long-term vision is the why, and really the mission statement is the how. How are we going to achieve that? And I put one in here that I had come up with a while ago, and the mission statement for the Burr chapter is to help members increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals and create positive community goodwill. So those are that's really the mission statement that we came up with. Now, you can edit these anytime if you come up with something better. Regardless of the time period that you're doing your goals for, this will stay the same throughout those periods. So it's a static entry once you put it in there. So once you've done that, we're going to click the Go button. And this is going to pull up 6 months worth of goal entry for the period that we chose. So I chose January, so it's going to pull up January through June. So it'll give us 6 months worth of goals to enter. And what you can see across the top is the months. And then as we scroll down, we'll see the different, the chapter success criteria that we're going to measure ourselves against. And you can see we have attendance percentage, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs, visitors, new memberships, number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. Before we get into what all of those are, let's take a look first at this option up here at the top. Now, you have a choice as to how you're going to enter your goals, and we should talk about the distinction between those two things. We can either enter the goals as a number that encompasses the whole chapter, or we can enter them as per member. Essentially, they're the same thing. It's whether it's going to be a big number or a smaller number. Keep in mind, though, that it is a one-time setting, meaning for each of those chapter criteria, you can't switch back and forth. So it's an all or nothing. Either you're entering all your goals as a whole chapter goal, or you're entering all your goals as per member goals. So whichever one you're more comfortable with. If you do in the future decide to switch, so maybe leadership teams switch and the next leadership team says, yeah, I'm more comfortable entering them as per member, it will not recalculate all the numbers going back in time. Those numbers will just kind of be off when you go and look at your actual results. So keep that in mind when you're deciding whether you're going to choose for the whole chapter or per member. We do have a couple of questions up from Laura. Laura, I'm going to hold off on that question until the end. It has to do with getting credit for the events. So I'm going to come back to that in a little bit, Laura. All right. So looking at the goals, there's also, well, let's look at the first one, the attendance percentage. So attendance percentage is pretty straightforward. It's, what's the percentage of members that are showing up there on a weekly basis. Now, personally, my opinion, I think this should be 100% straight across the board, but that may not be the case in everybody's chapter. Maybe you're having attendance issues, or you need to get attendance up in the chapter, and you're going to do that gradually. So what we really need to do is just put the numbers in. So let's say that you are having some attendance issues, and you constantly have 2, 3, 4 members absent each week. So for this chapter in Antarctica, I'm going to start off with, we're going to start off trying to get 85%, and then maybe we're going to go to 88% for February, and then in March we want to get up to 90%, then maybe 92%, and then 94%, 96%. So that's our goals for attendance. And the actuals are going to be pulled right from the PALMS report. So after we get done entering the goals, we'll be able to see the actuals. How do we stack up against those? Now, what you'll see in the next 2 lines for each of the criteria is the mechanisms. Now, mechanisms are how are we going to accomplish that goal? So where this really helps you as a leadership team is that it helps you plan out your activities for the year as well. So what are some good things that we can do to increase attendance in a chapter? So maybe part of that is just that the membership committee needs to make sure that they're sending out attendance letters. So maybe in January we're going to focus on sending out attendance letters. So that would be one mechanism for attaining our goal. So I'm going to put membership committee attendance letters. And maybe that's something that we're going to have to focus on for a couple of months until we get into the rhythm of doing that. And maybe what's something else that we can do to increase our attendance percentage? Maybe we can, do an educational moment. On some of them, maybe you can be even more specific. I know that there's a podcast that Dr. Meisner has done on attendance, and one of the things that he always says is you can't get a haircut over the phone, and in the same way, we can't do networking without being there at the chapter. So maybe you can assign a podcast for people to listen to. Now, if you need some ideas for this, there's a handy little button here at the top called the Chapter Goal Guide. And if we click on the Chapter Goal Guide, this will bring up a box for us. And they'll give us possible mechanisms for each of these benchmarks, or they call them success drivers. So here's some other possible mechanisms for attendance. Education on importance, sending out the control letters, acknowledging people for perfect attendance, playing the BNI game, follow-up phone calls by the membership committee weekly, educating members on where to find a substitute. So these are all possible mechanisms that you can choose from, but it's not limited to these things. So these are really your own mechanisms for how you want to achieve these goals. And again, the idea is to continue this throughout the rest of your term. Now we have a question, Kathy. Kathy asks, are options of mechanisms available to them as they fill this out? So I think I just answered that question with the Chapter Goal Guide. So again, the Chapter Goal Guide, if you click this button, you can see this. Some regions have copied this and made it into a Word document that may be available in your Documents section in BNI Connect. So, or you can always just highlight it, right-click, choose Copy, and paste that into Notepad or into Microsoft Word, and you can print a copy out to keep with you. All right. So let's take a look at the next one. And total number of one-to-ones is the next category. So this is, again, you're going to have to think about whether you're doing these as a whole chapter or whether you're doing these per member. And again, I've chose for the whole chapter, so what I'm going to do is come up with a number that I'd like to choose for total number of one-to-ones. Generally speaking, my opinion, we should be shooting for one-to-one per week per member. That's part of the traffic lights program. That's recommended through member success program. So if we have, let's say, 25 members in this Burr chapter, my goal is going to be 100 one-to-ones. So we want to do 100 one-to-ones per month. And maybe in the next month, we're hopefully going to maybe add a couple new members, and we're going to try to always increase what we're doing. So maybe I'm just going to make that 104, assuming we add a new member. And let's say we add another new member. So I'm just going to gradually increase this number a little bit. Oops, 1,000. That would be an awful lot. 116 and then 120, assuming we're adding maybe one member per month along the lines. And again, what are some mechanisms that we can use to do total number of one-to-ones, increase the number of one-to-ones? Of course, there's always educational moments. There's the BNI game. Maybe they're going to do a BNI game for this. There's also meeting stimulants. Maybe one of the mechanisms is to teach people how to enter their slips online so that they can record their one-to-ones easier right in the system. And again, if you click on the chapter goal guide, here's some other mechanisms that you can use for increasing one-to-ones. So again, education, president stressing the value, using the dance card thank you slips, acknowledging people for the most one-to-ones. Acknowledgement is always a very powerful tool for increasing. I think everybody should have usually in their president kits is the Notable Networker Awards, and that's a great tool to use for increasing participation and recognizing people in the chapter for things. The mentoring program, that is another great idea for increasing number of one-to-ones. All right, so going on to the next one, we have the CEUs. And CEUs, for those regions that are using them, those are the chapter education units where you get credit for attending things like today, webinars, or going to networking events, or going to member success program. Now, for CEUs, in our region, we also recommend that we're looking to get at least one CEU per week per member. So again, looking at this chapter, if we have 25 in it, we could put in 100 and then 104, 108, 112, 116, and 120, and then come up with ways to increase. So maybe we're going to do an educational moment on the podcasts. Maybe we are going to attend an MSP. All things that we can do to increase the chapter education units. Now, we do have another question. Katie asks, can the goals be exported into Word or Excel? This goals entry screen cannot, but I do believe that the report for them can be. So we'll take a look at that in just a minute. And again, if we click on the chapter goal guide, we will see some ideas for increasing CEUs. So making sure people attend the MSP, use the CEU tracking slip, which is also now available in BNI Connect to be entered online. And then, especially in our region, we do our changeover in April, so leadership team training is just around the corner, so that's something we're encouraging in our region. All right, so the next thing is with the visitors. So what are your goals for visitors? Now, visitors are going to help you drive the next two things as well, or the next two or three things, the new memberships and the number of members in the chapter. So goal for visitors, one recommended goal is that every member should be bringing in one visitor per month. So again, my numbers for here in a 25-member chapter, and I do that just because it's easy math, we're going to look for, hopefully, 1 visitor per member per month, and we're going to look for 25 visitors in a month. And then since we're adding a member a month, I'm just going to increase that number up by 1 each month. And what are some mechanisms for doing that? How about a bring your sub day? How about having a visitors day? How about doing a stack day? How about making sure that you have a growth coordinator assigned in your chapter? How about teaching people how to use the visitor invitation in BNI Connect? So those are all mechanisms for increasing visitors in your chapter. And if you click on the chapter goal guide again, you can go back and look at the visitors per month. So again, visitors, stack days, postcard program, double your chapter day, play the BNI game, implement the mentoring program, hand out CDs regarding inviting guests to members, chapter websites, increasing your chapter websites as well. So the next one here is how many new memberships are you putting into the chapter in a month? So now this is going to be varied on everybody's goals depending on the size of your chapter. Now, one thing that as a director, one thing I've always been taught and that I teach to my chapters is that most chapters, regardless of size, have an attrition rate of approximately 1 member per month. So that's something to keep in mind, that most chapters are going to lose about 12 members a year. And in order to grow your chapter, you have to take on new members and replace the ones that are leaving. So in general, what I've been alluding to here is that we're looking to increase our Burr chapter by 1 member per month. So keeping that in mind and also replacing any possible members that leave, we're probably going to need 2 new members per month in order to grow the chapter. So I'm going to put in 2 new memberships each month. And what are some mechanisms for doing that? So again, there's always visitors days, stack days. One thing that maybe you're not doing very well is to implementing the visitor host program. Maybe it is to concentrate on open networking so that your visitors feel more welcome in the chapter. Maybe it is doing the visitor orientation at the end of the meeting. So these are all ways that you can increase the number of new memberships in your chapter. And again, if we click on the chapter goal guide and take a look at increasing visitors per month, treating every week as a visitors day, the postcard program, industry tent cards. So that's an interesting one that we've done in certain chapters, where you actually leave an empty seat, and in front of that seat you put the profession of somebody that you'd like to be filling that seat. So it's a visual reminder for people on a weekly basis that we need a plumber, we need an electrician, we need a mortgage person in our chapter, and that seat is empty. So these are all mechanisms for increasing visitors per month. All right, so number of members in chapter is the next one. So number of members in chapter, again, in this chapter, the Burr chapter, we're starting off at 25. We'd really like to get to 26, then 27, 28, 29. We'd like to get to 30 members within 6 months. And again, what are some ways that we can do that? One thing that we can do is also work on retention. So we can make sure that members are renewing on time. We can also work on to make sure that our members are receiving referrals. So maybe we're going to do member reviews within the chapter. And then there's the traditional BNI games and the visitors days. Now, one thing that you can also do is if you are, let's say, doing a visitors day, you may want to take visitors day. That can be used on so many things, and make sure that you put those all the way down the column in a particular month, because that's going to help all of those goals in that particular category. All right, so the next one is another calculation. We're going to do number of referrals. So again, I'm doing this by whole chapter. Now, we're hoping that our members each pass one referral per week. That's our goal. So we're going to shoot for 4 referrals per member per month, which would be about 100 referrals per month. And since we're adding members, I'm going to increase that by 4 each month. And what are some mechanisms for increasing the number of referrals? One could be, again, using the online slips in BNI Connect and making sure people are shortening the referral process. How about the referral tracking sheet? The referral tracking sheet is another great tool for taking the referral process all the way from the beginning all the way through the end. Maybe one is to focus on one-to-ones. Maybe you're going to work on increasing your contact spheres or your power teams. And again, if we click on the chapter goal guide and go down, we can see that the number of referrals per month, we can work on a BNI game, schedule a chapter social, create a preferred provider list, implement the mentoring program, all of these different tools that we can use to increase referrals in the chapter. And finally, we have the thank you for closed business. And this one is going to be, again, for the whole chapter. So what are your goals? My personal recommendation here is that that you start a good starting point for this if you've never really tracked it before. We generally average about $35,000 per member seat value in BNI worldwide. So I would start with that. If you're looking for 35, that's approximately $3,000 per member per month. In order to receive that kind of business, people have to be giving that kind of business. So 3,000 times 25, so that's 75,000. So we're going to look for at least $75,000 worth of closed business a month in our chapter. And then again, as we add members, I'm going to increase that accordingly. And what are ways that we can make sure that we're reporting or increasing our thank you for closed business? Maybe we want to make sure that we're talking about leads versus referrals. Maybe we are looking to the referral tracking sheet is also a great way to make sure that people are following through on their referrals and closing them out. The online slips and making sure people are filling out the online slips for thank you for closed business. And again, if we look at the chapter goal guide, this will give us a number of other mechanisms for doing that. So one way is to make sure that the vice president is commenting on the revenue on a weekly basis. So these are all the ways. Any quick questions on the data entry portion of this? Now, at any time, you can click the Save button to make sure that all of your goals here are saved, and then you can continue editing them. If you completely mess things up and you'd like to start all over again, you can click the Discard Changes. And then once we're done, we can click the Back button, and it will bring you back to the first screen. I'm going to click back again. It'll take us back to our Operations menu. Now, once you've entered your goals in, you can go back in and view the goals. Now, right now, there's a 24-hour wait before, from the time that you put the goals in to the time that all of the data from worldwide gets scooped up from the POMS reports, gets crunched and calculated and entered into this part of the system. And that happens once a day. So right now, you do have to wait 24 hours before the actuals will appear. That being said, once it is put in there, and again, this is our test region, so we're not really entering any POMS reports up there. I wonder if we have any from earlier in the year, though. And let me go back. I'm going to go back to January of 2012. So, yeah, we don't really have any POMS reports for this particular chapter, but what you'll see in this particular report is that you will have your goal. So you'll have the goals that you entered, then you will have the actual, based on the POMS report and the mechanisms that you chose. And going back to your question, Katie, from earlier, can the goals be exported into Word or Excel? And here is where you can export this report into Excel so that you can, if you find it easier to work there, or you'd like to pass it out or email it to your chapter, you would be able to do that through here. All right, so that covers the goals. Does anybody have any quick questions? We are at the bottom of the hour. At this point, I do want to say thank you to anybody that was here that has to leave right at the bottom of the hour. Again, this webinar is being recorded, and it will be made available on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/BNI Connect Global, as well as on the support site, which you can get to just by clicking on this question mark right here in BNI Connect. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global, and you can always connect with me in BNI Connect. My name is Jeremy Walsh. So at this point, what I would like to do is open this up to questions. So if you have any questions whatsoever, again, on chapter goals or on anything else in BNI Connect, I would like to open it up at this point for any questions. And again, I'll stay here as long as people have questions. We do have about 3 or 4 questions, but again, please enter your questions now. So let's see. Laura asks, I've never heard of the BNI game. Where can I find out more about it? Laura, the best thing to do is to talk to your chapter director consultant or your executive director, and they'll be able to let you know more about that. But here's the Reader's Digest version of it. The BNI game it's a game for your chapter, and the way it works is you split your chapter into 3, 4, or 5 teams, depending on how many people you have in your chapter. And what you do is you compete against each other, and you award points for the things that you're doing in your chapter. So, for example, you show up on time, that's 5 points. You ask for a specific referral during your 60 seconds, that's 5 points. You attend a member success program, that's 15 points. You bring a visitor to the chapter, that's 20 points. Your visitor becomes a new member, that's 50 points. So all of these things, you can assign point values to them. There are some templates in various toolkits around, the President's Toolkit and other places that have it, but you can also customize it to your own needs. My recommendation is that pick things that your chapter really needs to work on and assign massive amounts of points to those particular things. For example, if you're looking to grow your chapter, what are things that support growing your chapter? Well, bringing visitors and bringing in new members. So make sure that those have a really high point value, and that'll give people an opportunity to, it really brings out the competitive edge in entrepreneurs all over the place. Does that answer your question there, Laura? And again, some regions, what you may want to do also, I'm going to switch back over to our live system, but if you go to the home screen and then click on My Network and then go to your Documents section and click on the More button, if you do a search for game in here, you may find that your region has, our region doesn't have a BNI game uploaded into there, but some regions do. So the other thing that it would be in is the chapter toolkit. So you can search for those things. If not, please do talk to your executive director, director consultant, and they'll be able to help you out with that. All right. Hope that helps, Laura. All right. Stephanie asks, as a director of a chapter, can I enter their goals for them? And Stephanie, that is going to be a regional decision. So the permissions in BNI Connect are set up so that they are highly customizable depending on your executive director's decisions on what people have access to and don't have access to. That being said, it is certainly doable. It is something that is able to be done in the system, but it is definitely, please talk to your executive director before you go entering goals for your chapters to make sure that that's an acceptable practice in your region. Does that help, Stephanie? But theoretically, you should have access to view and do that function. Katie says, where on BNI Connect do I find champion chapter goals? Is that the name of your chapter, Katie? I'm assuming? So I'm not sure what you mean by champion chapter. What you would do is if you're a member of that chapter or you're the leadership team of that chapter, again, you go to Operations Chapter. Okay, so high-performing chapter goals. Katie, are you a member or a director? Okay, so as a member, you're only going to be able to see your own chapter's goals. If you'd like to review goals that are within your region and maybe look at the goals of those champion chapters in your region, you would need to enlist the help of your director consultant or executive director. For director consultants that are on the line, there is a report that you can help your members out with on this, and that is under Reports Region. And again, if you have access to this at the regional level, under the regional office reports, there is a chapter goals program report. And you can run this report and look at the goals for all of the chapters in the region. And at that point, you can pick out your champion chapters and you can share those goals with the people that are asking for them. But at a member level, Katie, that is not available. Does that help? All right. And if you talk to your executive director or director consultant and they're wondering where to find that, just send them to us at support and we will definitely show them where that is. All right. We have another question from Laura from previously, a couple of events-related questions. Laura says, none of the BNI Connect webinars that I have attended have shown up. And that is because we're not recording attendance in BNI Connect for these webinars. It's just too difficult to do from an administrative standpoint. So you have a couple of choices there. If you do talk to your regional office, they can manually add those onto your training history. Assuming that, again, if your region approves these as CEU credits, you can turn in a slip for these, and then they can also manually add the webinars. But from we're a very small team here at Support. There's only 3 of us that run support for the entire world, and we just don't have the bandwidth to do the attendance records for the webinars. So does that help at all, Laura? But again, your regional office can definitely manually add those on to your record. And I think that answers your first question too. That is all the questions that I see listed here. So does anybody else have any questions at all? I have somebody on here, RB, that has their hand up. I'm going to unmute your microphone if you would like to. Do you have a microphone so that you can speak? Let me unmute you. RB, you there? All right. Does anybody else have any questions? If not, what I'm going to do is say thank you very much for your time today. I greatly appreciate having everybody here. Just a reminder, you can find the recorded webinar probably in a couple of days by clicking on the question mark in BNI Connect or going to support.bniconnect.com, scroll down to the bottom. At the top, you'll see all the upcoming webinars listed, and at the bottom, you'll see the trainings, and there'll be a new article in here called BNI Connect Recorded Member Webinars for February 2013, so you can find them there. Please also join us on facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. We do webinar announcements and tips and tricks and all sorts of things up there. Our Twitter handle is @BNI Connect. Find me in BNI Connect, Jeremy Walsh. And again, the YouTube channel is youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I look forward to talking to you in the future. A good referral for me is to please go back to your chapters, let them know about these webinars, and to invite them to attend the next one. Have a great day, everybody, and happy connecting.